afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to the EnduraPlas live virtual showroom. Today we're going to be presenting the EnduraPlas fire control sprayers. So we're going to start off with a 360 walk-around segment, and then we're going to hear from a real fire chief in Missouri about his experience with these sprayers. So if you're viewing this directly on YouTube, head on over to livevirtualshowroom.com, and there you can watch this live stream as well as ask questions in the chat box. So with that, I'm going to hand you over to my co-hosts, Doug and Michael.
Hey, welcome back everybody to the next EnduraPlas live virtual showroom. Thank you so much for joining us. For those of you that have been with us before, welcome back. For those that this is your first time, we're certainly glad to have you. We want to bring you some good information today regarding the EnduraPlas firefighters and foam firefighters. My name is Doug Symington. I'm one of the sales reps here. I'll be with you for a few minutes here today trying to tell you a little bit of what I know about these units and hopefully answer some questions for you towards the end. With me is Michael. I'll let him introduce himself for you.
Thank you, Doug. My name is Michael, and I'm with the been with the inside sales team for EnduraPlas for a number of years. And like Doug says, welcome back if you've been on before. Otherwise, welcome aboard. And just one thing I wanted to encourage everybody on is go ahead and ask questions or post questions throughout the video. And at the end of our little discussion going back and forth on the equipment here, we're going to have a little question and answer session. So with that, we're going to go ahead and talk about the units a little bit. So Doug, if you want to just kind of introduce what we're going over today. And
Sure.
Cool.
So thank you, Mike. So right here in front of you guys, this unit right here you're looking at is a 250-gallon Fire Ranger. This unit right here is going to be what we call a quick response fire unit. This unit right here is a 100-gallon Foam Ranger. So that's a 100-gallon firefighter with the foam attachment. We'll get through and talk about each of the features of these and then the other units we have as we go along. Want to talk about the sizes and whatnot. But to start with, a lot of you probably have a question in your mind. Why a firefighter? Why is a firefighter important? I know we farmed for years and always, why is a firefighter important? Well, a firefighter actually, on the day you need it, is the most important piece of equipment on your farm. And hopefully that day never comes. But on the day that it does come, it's the piece of equipment you don't want to ever be without, isn't it?
very, very cheap insurance package to have on and not just a farm, Doug. I know we're talking about farms here a little bit, but there's, across the country, there's not really any part of the country that's not affected by fires, whether it's in brush country or grass country or whatever. Even in a facility, business facility or whatever, it's always nice to have a piece of equipment there that you can suppress it quickly. And that's your point.
And we talk to customers all the time, to farmers, to industry people, and every one of them tell us the same thing. The day a fire strikes your occupation, whether it be a farm or a business, whether it be your field, your crop, your piece of equipment, your shop, your haystack, whatever it is that the fire touches, is a devastating day. It's a devastating day. And I'll tell you something about people that are affected by fire, and there's thousands of people that will testify to this, that the day that a fire touches your property is devastating. Some people never actually recover from that devastation.
True fact.
Lots of farms that get hit by a fire never actually recover from that. Some of them it takes decades to recover.
Well, you've got a little bit of a story, Doug, with a guy just north of us that had a combine. Maybe you want to just kind of introduce that?
Yeah.
We'll show.
Just a good friend of ours just north of the border, running a nearly new combine, caught the combine on fire. And of course, we're talking in Canadian funds now because it was north of the border, but around $750,000 to $800,000 machine. That's a pretty big chunk of change for anybody. For a lot of people, that's as much money as they see in their lifetime.
Yep.
And that combine caught fire and it burnt right to the ground. Could that have been prevented? Yes. Yes, it could have. Could the fact that it caught fire have been prevented? Probably not. Accidents happen every day. But could it have been handled differently? Could they have had a firefighter on site, on the field? Could they have stopped the fire in its infant stages? Could they have saved the equipment? Yes. That could have happened, and that's what we want to talk about today with the firefighters here. We're talking about units here that don't break the bank. We're talking about minimal expenditure for huge savings, aren't we?
Well, yeah, and the other thing we're leaning towards here is safety for you, your operation, and your hired persons, your family members, whatever it is. We just want to have the right tool for you on the spot for, to protect from any devastating thing to happen.
That's right. And it happens all the time. Just another story comes to mind. Don't want to spend too long on stories, but young fella just down the road. A couple years ago, stacking hay, unloading the trailers, backed the Bobcat up, backed up a little too far, caught the haystack on fire, lost the whole haystack. Fire department's 8-9 miles from the farm. Time it got there, it was too late. They couldn't get it out. Lost the whole haystack. So then what do? You have to buy hay for your cows all winter long. What does that do? You say, well, it's just a haystack, but it's your cash flow. That's your livelihood. That means this year you're out that much profit.
That's the difference in whether you make money on the cows that year or not.
Exactly. That's the reality. So that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about equipment that you can buy at a reasonable price that can save you thousands, if not way bigger figures of number than that, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yep. So let's get down to the business then of talking about the size options. So we've already talked a little bit. Let's start over here. This one right here is 100 gallon. Now, this particular unit, and there's one smaller than this, there's a 100 gallon and a 60 gallon. We consider them for a back of a side-by-side. Now, that is super handy. For a farmer, that's handy, but also for a rural fire department, that's handy. You know, when you get out in that brush fire, you get out where you can't take your big equipment, you can't take your big trucks, you can't get out there where it's way back out in the woods, back in the ravines, you got that brush fire, you can't get out. Take that side-by-side back there. That'll do the job, you know. That little unit right there might just save you thousands of dollars just in equipment wear and tear and breakdown, you know?
Yep.
Then you move up to this unit right here. This one here is what we would consider for the back of a, 3/4, 1-ton truck. Starts at 200 gallons. Then we have a 250. That's what you're looking at right here is a 250 gallon. There's two bigger than this. There's a 300 and a 400 gallon. Now that's in the firefighter sizes. Then of course we have right here what we call the quick response, which we'll get to a little bit later and talk about. So again, to reiterate, 60 and 100 gallon for the back of the side-by-sides, 200, 250, 300, and 400 for the back of a truck.
That's good.
Right?
Yep, that's good.
Mike, I'll hand it back to you, and you can talk a little bit about the engines, pumps. How'd that sound?
Absolutely. Thank you, Doug. Good introduction. And one thing we want to just point out here to start with is a Honda engine. We use Honda motors on all of our fire equipment here at EnduraPlas. We just absolutely swear by the Honda motors for a couple of simple reasons. Number one, they're reliable. They work when you need them.
Absolutely.
Anybody that runs little gas motors, we pull these things off the assembly line here at the facility, and if you want to do some water testing, if that doesn't start first pull, it starts second pull, and that's the first time you've ever started that motor. Very reliable and easy to start. The next thing is that comes with a 3-year factory warranty. So any Honda motor comes with a 3-year factory warranty. That just gives you the assurance of anything goes wrong, you're covered.
The other thing you gotta love about Honda, they've got a dealer or a repair certified person in every town. I mean, you got towns of 300 people and they have a Honda dealership.
Yeah.
They've got, you're out in the countryside, guys, and you got a Honda, you're gonna be able to get it fixed.
Very well covered in the market. Yeah, I agree. Then hooked up to that, married up to that Honda motor, we run a cast aluminum centrifugal water pump. So this water pump is specifically designed for high flow of water. We don't use this for any chemical applications on our sprayers. This is a high flow water pump. I think it's a 100 PSI max at 120 gallon per minute flow or something. That's open flow. So it's just to give you an idea on what kind of capacity this pump can put out. It's very compact, but it's a very, very high flow pump. And that pump comes with the actual aluminum part of this unit comes with a 5-year warranty. So 3-year on the Honda motor, 5-year on the centrifugal aluminum pump.
That's excellent coverage, Mike. I just want to put in here again one more time, guys, as we're going through the live virtual showroom. If you could possibly ask questions all through it, we'll answer them at the end. But I have a question for you, Mike, right now while we're on this subject, because Mike's kind of an expert on the pumps and stuff. He's worked a lot in that department. But is this a self-priming unit?
Yes, it is. It is a self-priming. So basically what a self-priming pump does is you've got a little flap in your intake side of your water flow. And what that means is when the water's flowing in, liquid's flowing in, that flap opens up and allows the liquid flow into the pump. When you stop that pump, that flap shuts off so it doesn't drain the water out of your pump.
Yep.
And then the next time you start it, it's already self-primed.
Okay. So when I buy a unit first off or front, and one of my customers does, should they prime it?
Yes.
Yeah.
The first time you start the pump, it's going to be dry, obviously. This little red cap on the top here is threaded on too tight for me to get off right now, but that thing is just pop that off, fill the pump with water,
I think
and
this
that'll
one we
prime
had
it.
off earlier.
Yeah, that'll prime the pump first time, and then
Away
as
you
long
go.
as you don't run it dry, you should be good for
Okay.
self-priming.
So that's all it takes. You just take the cap off, fill it with water, start the engine, your pump's primed, and from that point on, it should always be primed.
Yep, as long as it keeps water, yes.
That's good. That's good. Thank you for that.
Now, on that note, though, Doug, just want to point out too, in the winter, preparing that for winter, you want to pull the bottom plug out and drain the water out so you don't freeze and
Correct.
crack.
Yeah. Good point. Good point. So it's so to reiterate, 3 years on the engine, 5 years on the pump on the
Correct.
warranty. So warranty is 3 years on Honda, 5 years on the Aussie Fire pump.
Correct. Yep.
Very good.
Yep.
Okay. So you're well covered, guys. It's reputable equipment, very, very upstanding, strong stuff. So next thing we want to talk about a little bit is the actual frame of the unit. And I trust more questions will come in as we go along, but and I'm sure they will when we get to the end. But we're talking about the frame here. This is one of the magic pieces of all of the sprayers and firefighters and everything that we sell. We believe that everything should be easy to move around. That's one of the EnduraPlaz beliefs with the stuff we build. It should be easy to handle. You shouldn't have to have something that takes 3 men and a hired girl to move around. You should be able to move this around simply. And that's why we've built all of our frames here pallet forkable. So one guy can come up, drive up, lift this on his truck, drive out, and fight fire. You can leave this full of water. So you don't have to sit and wait for this to fill while you eat your sandwich so you can drive out and fight fire. You can come up while this is full and be gone, and you can save yourself time and money immediately.
Yep, and the same thing goes, does it, Doug, with the truck units as well?
All of them are so easy to move around. They got the pallet forkable frames, which is really important. Mike, I'm going to turn it to you now to talk about the tie-down points on the frames.
Yep. Absolutely. Thank you, Doug. So on the let's start with the UTV sprayer here. So along the side of the frame here, you see a bunch of holes in the frame there. That's not just so it looks like Swiss cheese. What you can actually do is put D-ring hooks bolted on there. They come with the units, so you can put a D-ring hook on there just to mount it to the corners of your UTV. They got those little tie-down points in the corner of the bed there, and you can just fasten it. I know some guys just strap it in. You can do that also if it's a quick in and out thing. But these ones have D-ring hooks. These bigger ones over here for the pickup trucks, they actually have points right here at the base of the tank. So right where the tank is mounted to the frame, you've got little hook points here where you can hook in and lock that down to the four corners of your truck. That's probably the most secure way to mount those. Is that make sense,
I think
Doug?
that's good coverage. So what we're saying is it's very easily to secure them in and safely and strongly fasten them in. Very simple to do that. The next point we come to is the actual tank itself. These are an EnduraPlaz built tank. They're built right here in the factory. We rotomold 5 days a week, and that's what we do. Our tanks, we are very proud and pleased to be able to tell you, are unmatched in the industry quality-wise, and they're strong. They're rotomolded, not blow molded, so you're going to have a tank that's robust. I would encourage everybody that's on here, after this live virtual showroom, to go on to the EnduraPlaz website and watch a few videos on quality control and on some of the testing we've done on different units. We actually have a video of a 3,200 gallon tank, the grandpapa of this one, that you fill up with water, turn it upside down, and hang it from a crane and bounce it with 3,200 gallons of water in there. That's tough. Then we have another one with a 3,000 gallon vertical tank. They took a crane, they took a little SUV and dropped out of the sky onto the top of this tank. Then proceed to pull the tank apart and use it. That's tough.
Yeah, that was quite a ride. My back hasn't been the same since.
Yeah, well, we'll go there later. But anyway, so back to business. That's the quality of tanks that we produce. And a little bit about our manufacturing of our tanks. We're in control of the manufacturing right from the very base stages of the polymer. We have our own grinding stations, work it all the way up, quality control right up till the tank is made, shipped out the door. It's all done by EnduraPlaz and EnduraPlaz employees. So we have good control over the quality. That's why we're comfortable to put that 10-year warranty on these tanks that we do, isn't it?
Yep, absolutely.
If you look at the front, if it's okay to go here quick, if you look at the front here, you'll see a sticker. That's going to come on every tank. So what that is, every tank comes standard with a 5-year warranty. If you register this online, the serial numbers off this tank, that'll give you a second 5 years of prorated warranty. So you're actually covered for 10 years on this unit. Did I get that right?
That's right. That's
right.
absolutely correct.
So that's a little bit about the tanks.
One more thing I just wanted to talk about, Doug, on the actual polymer that we use, that Doug's just went over, that we grind the polymer and build this raw material right up to the actual tank itself. This tank has got colored polymer in the, I mean, it's solid color polymer. So like he was going over before, you leave these full of water so you can put them in and out of your truck. That thing full of water, with a solid color tank, it will grow no algae on the water. So algae has to have sunlight that shines through the tank to grow on the water. So with these tanks here, they're actually protected from that. Is that correct,
That's
Doug?
correct. Yep. That's right. So we've, like I say, the engineers thought of everything, which is a kind of a common phrase, but the truth be told is you're buying a unit here that works, it's meant to work, and it works like it's supposed to work. One more thing we'd like to point out quickly, and everybody to do with EnduraPlaz is familiar with it, but our transport tanks, we have a very unique tie down. We don't use hoops, bands, straps, garbage. We use what we call a pin mount system. Pin mount system means that there's on the bottom of each leg, and those legs are built out of thick poly, there's a pin goes through each leg and bolts down. What that does, that means that this tank is now part of the frame below it. It's not floating, it's not adjustable, it's not, you don't have to sit and retighten it all the time. It's part of the unit. It's pancaked together. So when you buy this unit together, it's one unit. And what that will do for you is, because it doesn't have that flex and wear from everything, it will prolong the length of the life of your tank. That's proven.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a good point, Doug, because we all know that as you fill a tank and it empties, or in the heat to cold, poly tanks expand and contract, they move, and if there's hoops and bands over them, that hoop is moving on that tank, and that's wearing on that tank all the time as it's doing that. With this has been proven system. We've made tank like this for years and years. We've actually had trucks roll over on top of tanks, total out the trucks, and salvage the tanks.
I think that's even I think that video is even in a previous online or live virtual show.
I think you're right.
Yep. So the next thing we want to talk about, and again, ask questions as we go along. We'll try and answer them later, but we're going to talk about the Fire Ranger specifically. We'll get to the Foam Ranger and the Quick Response Unit in a minute, but we want to talk specifically about the Fire Rangers. Okay, so like we said, guys, there's a 60 and 100 gallon for the side-by-side. There's a 200, 250, 300, and 400 for the back of a pickup truck. Now the Fire Rangers, it's just what you see here. You're going to have this poly hose reel. Every one comes standard with 100 feet of 3/4 inch hose. They come with a standard fire industry approved nozzle. They come with the pump and engine that we talked about, the 3-year warranty, the 5-year warranty. Good stuff. That's the fire unit. Now this unit here has a few really specific features. One of the questions we get asked a lot is, can I let this unit run when I'm not spraying? Yes, you can. On the fire unit, you can. This has a bypass that goes back into the tank. You could show them how that works there, Mike, if you would, on the back of there.
Absolutely. So what Doug's meaning by a bypass here, we've got a manual valve back here, which you can adjust. So when you're not running your hose reel, so your pump is running, but you don't have any outlet for the liquid going out of the hose reel, this little bypass here is allowing some of the liquid to come off the pump and return back into the tank. And what that's doing is preventing the liquid in here to heat up and essentially burn the seals out of your pump. So that return there is an extremely valuable component to this sprayer.
So what that will do for you in the everyday use is, if you want to fill this, start it, leave it running, so when you get to the fire scene, everything's ready to go, you can do that.
Yeah.
It can sit there and run until you get there.
Yep, absolutely.
The next thing we want to talk about, and Mike's going to do a little demonstration on this here for us, is the self-fill option. They call it drafting in the industry, don't they?
Yep.
They call it drafting.
Yep.
This unit right here has the ability, or all of our firefighters do, have the ability to fill themselves. If you've got a water source, a pond or a creek or a river or cattle water or whatever, they have the ability to fill themselves as long as the supply is there.
Yep.
Show them how that works, Michael. I'd like you guys to look at this and just see how easily this is done.
That's good. And we're gonna have a little bit of a live demonstration in a video coming up here towards the end of this little presentation. But so all of our Fire Rangers come with this 25-foot 2-inch hose coiled up in the tank. So when you receive it, you're going to have this hose in the tank, and what that's for is it's a draft hose. One end of it's got this little screen on it.
Strainer?
That Doug's holding. That's the end that obviously throws in the creek or the pond, so you can suck water without sucking all the debris off the bottom. The next thing is on this pump here, the way it's set up, you've got a valve coming into the inlet side of the pump. And then obviously your outlet side of the pump, which is the top part here, you've got your hose reel, you've got an extra 2-inch cam lock, and your bypass. So what this is doing is pulling from your water tank through the pump and through the hose reel, essentially. If you want to draft this tank full from a creek, you pop that cap off, take your hose from your tank up to your outlet side of the pump, and just couple this draft hose on to the inlet side of the pump, throw this in the creek, and you're now filling your tank here from your external water source.
Turn your pump on and away you go. It just starts to fill.
Yeah. And there's, again, in this video coming up, there's a good demonstration of it, but from one of our valued customers and a dealer also. But I think you could probably fill this 250-gallon tank in 5 minutes.
Max, start to finish, including couple time and everything. Yep.
So you're out in a remote area, you've got a fire, grass fire, combine fire, whatever it is. If you're not near a water source, you can just run to the nearest creek or pond or whatever. If you're not
waiting for a truck to come with water, whatever, you can keep moving. The other thing I'd like to talk about this pump, just briefly while Michael's putting it back together, the head of this pump is equipped with 4 outlets. And what that does for you, if you want to set this up so that you can have multiple people drawing off of it, you can do that. You know, when you're out in a brush fire and you're trying to do cleanup out in the bush, a lot of times you don't need a lot of water, but you need it in a lot of places to get everything properly, comfortably put out. And this unit works very well for that. You can hook up to here with multiple hoses and go out and actually work a large area. So just a little tip and point. It's not a big deal, but it is something that's very valuable about the unit.
Yep, I agree. It's a good point, Doug. That's got lots of capacity. If you want to come off of one of these ports, I've seen guys come out of this 2-inch port and go into like a 3 or 4 way, like garden size hose.
Yep.
And you can run it very efficiently.
So the next unit we got to talk about is the Foam Ranger. So again, guys, the Foam Ranger is available in every size that we make a Fire Ranger. It's virtually the Fire Ranger with the foam edition. Okay? Now, right away when people think foam equipment, foam fire equipment, the first thing that crosses everybody's mind is a whole bunch of dollar signs. I've been in the industry a long time. I know that. When you talk to people about foam fire equipment, they start thinking tens of thousands of dollars. Okay? It's not. It's not. You can put this foam edition on this firefighter for a very nominal amount of money. It's very feasible, very achievable, and you can have good coverage. This unit right here will do a fantastic job. We set them outside here one time, the different units, and we sprayed foam with them, and it was incredible. They just white the ground right out, just like a snowstorm. Just do a beautiful job. So if you're looking to get out there and fight fire, and you got situations where you need your water to go a little further, think hard about the foam unit, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
What do you usually hear? What do guys usually say? What do they expect? How much longer do they expect their water to last when they're using foam?
That's a good question, Doug, because like you look at this one for an example. You've got your external foam tank. So you got your green water tank and your gray foam tank. And then you're adjusting your foam. You've got a dial here where you can adjust, increase, or decrease the amount of foam going into your discharge line. So back to your question, how much further can you get your water? I would say probably 4 times, just at an average.
I would think so. Yeah, I mean, I hear everything from different customers from 2 times to 10 times. Obviously, in your mind, you have to realize that depends on the fire. Depends on what they're burning, depends on the weather outside, depends on everything. But I think 4 is a pretty comfortable number. Yeah. One of the things to point out here is all of our foam induction is after the pump. And the reason why that's important is you're not putting foam back into your water tank.
Yeah.
That's a really important point too.
That's a good feature, or a good thing to point out. The feature we pointed out on the Fire Ranger with the regulator going back into the tank, we do not have that on the Foam Rangers, for the simple reason that if you start pumping foam back into this tank here, which is your water source, you're going to have a fountain of foam eventually, because this is going to start foaming up in here, and then you got a mess.
That's right. And then
So.
we've talked a lot about the Honda, about the Aussie. We talked about that. We're going to talk a little bit about the Scotty foamers as well. We use all Scotty equipment for the foamers. And guys, everybody in the fire industry knows Scotty is a name you can trust. That's
Yep.
a name that's big in the industry and does a good job. That's what we use. There's not really a lot more to talk about the foam units. You know, does everybody need a foam unit? No. A lot of instances, a firefighter will do just fine. But in those instances where you need one, this is not an expensive option. This is an option that will work very, very well for not a lot more dollars. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at firefighting equipment.
That's a good point, Doug. And again, we all know if you got like an oil type fire or a grease fire or something, sometimes water can actually spread that. That's where your foam really comes into play, where you can smother that versus just kind of spread it. So to Doug's point, depending on your situation, obviously, and you can't always choose your situation, but depending on it, sometimes foam is a lot more effective than
even in those brush fires. You know, how many times you go out and spray it out, come back 15 minutes later, and there it is burning again.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't happen with foam. Foam just smothers it, just does a nice job, puts it out, and it's gone. From there, I'd imagine we'll have questions on that when we get to the end. We'll look forward to that. Right now, we're going to talk real briefly about the quick response unit. This particular unit, I really like this unit. Every farm currently already has a water source. Everybody's got a water truck or a water trailer or whatever you got. You need a firefighter on the field, but you're not really sure if you need that unit. This right here is such an inexpensive add-on that will get you what you need. I can't hardly imagine why a farm would be without it. Yeah. Honestly. You know, you got your pump in your engine, you got your hose. It's on a simple little, 2 foot by 4 foot pallet forkable skid. Set this on your truck. You're going to have a 2-inch hose with a coupling on there. Snap it on right here, and like we say, bazinga, you've got yourself a firefighter just like that, isn't it?
Well, that's a good point, Doug. Is, you know, if you got the water truck and that water truck's able to, you know, say follow the combines around from field to field or whatever, rather than to have a specific truck. You've already got a water truck. Yep. This is all you need. Then you've got a very large firefighter. As Doug points out, forkable frame again, easy to mount on the truck or take off. Galvanized frame, so it's long lasting.
The thing I like about this, if you only need that firefighter for 1 month out of the year, put it on your truck, use it. At the end of the month, unhook that hose, drain the water out of the pump, put it on the top shelf of your pallet racking in your shop, and don't think about it again until the next year. It's out of sight, out of mind. It's just a little square that could save you a lot of money one day.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely can.
So with that, we're going to move on. We don't want to take up too much time here, and I'm going to let Michael talk about one of his favorite products, the baffle balls.
Good. So again, as we this is an added option. It does not come standard with the units, but one thing that we recommend, obviously, in our tanks, because it prevents the sloshing in the tank from side to side, back and forth. Safety is a massive factor, because when you're dealing with this type of industry, you're dealing with a lot of times rough terrain on hillsides, really rough areas, pasture land, whatever it is, and it's all it might take to just be the straw that breaks the camel's back, or in other words, tip you over, is that slosh of liquid that moves. If you fill, the reason there's two sizes here is on the 250 tank, you see it's got a 16-inch lid on top. On the 60 and 100 gallon tanks, we've just got an 8-inch lid. That's the reason for the two different sizes of balls here. But these balls here are, I mean, when we talk about them in a transport tank like that in the back of a truck, we're saving about 30% on the truck drivetrain and the brake system on the truck, just from preventing that slosh back and forth as it's pushing you if you're stopping or taking off. What does that mean? That means a lot less repair on your truck.
Not only that, Mike, but everybody knows when you start talking fire equipment, There's a couple things that come to mind. Always it's speed.
Yep.
You're trying to get it done fast, but always it's safety.
Yeah.
Firemen aren't replaceable, you know? Take care of your guys. Take care of your equipment, but take care of your guys.
Yep.
And one way to do that, add that safety feature, is with the baffle balls. It really, really makes a huge difference.
For a few bucks a piece, it's a no-brainer.
Stick it in that tank, fill that tank up with them, fill it with water, and you will not even know you're hauling water. With that, guys, we're going to turn you over, and we're going to let Mr. Nick Mercer from down in Missouri. He's a fire chief. He's an excellent customer of ours, runs a farm store down there, but he's a fire chief, and he's going to tell you all about the EnduraPlas firefighters, why they use them, how they use them, and why they'll continue to use them for a long time. Be right back, folks. We'll be looking forward to some question and answer session later. Thank you.
Mercer, from Berry County, Missouri. I'm the fire chief of the Purdy Fire Protection District. So our department has purchased the EnduraPlas skid units for two reasons. To replace older skid units that we've had in the past and the affordability. We can afford this every year for our department. We could buy a new skid unit every year instead of waiting 4 or 5 years to buy a more commercialized fire skid unit. Our use on the EnduraPlas skid units is for fire control on grass fires and wildland type fires. The major difference that I notice when driving with the baffle balls, anytime you apply the brakes, you don't have the push from the water, you don't feel the slosh going back and forth within the tank itself. It's complete stability when driving around curves. I don't feel like there's any loss of control. There's no shakiness in the vehicle. Overall, it makes you feel like there's not any water weight back there in the back of the truck with the tank. I will never go back to a tank without baffle balls. One of the best features about the skid, I believe, is the banjo fittings and use of the banjo products for the quick fittings, for the suction hose, for the fill hose, and I can easily go to my local farm store and buy that part or whatever I need for this unit to customize and to repair if need be very quickly. There's a lot of new technology in the fire service, but with skids like this and fighting grass fire, technology is not a major player. When you need something that works continuously and is reliable, this skid unit is pretty basic and will work every time that we go to use it. One thing else that I like about the EnduraPlas skid is the quick fill system. It comes with 20 foot of 2-inch hard suction hose with the skid. When we're out in the rural areas and we're waiting on tankers or an engine to back us up with water, we're able to quickly go and drop the line into the pond and fill our tank in 4 to 5 minutes and be back to fighting fire. It makes the unit pretty self-sufficient in the fact that it can be out for a long period of time and not need assistance in obtaining water. I think the overall best thing about the EnduraPlas units is the fact that it's simple and easy to use, but also lightweight and versatile enough that we can use it in the fire service to easily be mobile and move between vehicles if we need to.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Wasn't that an interesting video, Mike?
That's awesome, yeah. Had a lot to do with Nick, actually, and interesting what he does down there and as a fire chief, and to hear his stories and just to hear the experiences of being able to save places from burning and stuff.
But just to hear a guy like that knows what he's talking about, use the equipment, actually hands-on, uses it, it's just fun, you know. And folks, there's people all over the country that can give you those same testimonials. I have customers from literally from British Columbia to probably Tennessee that can tell you about these units and how they work, and it's just awesome. With that, folks, is there more we need to cover, or should we head into the question and answer session?
I think if there's any questions, we'll get them answered. And
I'd like to say, Nick, if you're on here, I'd like to say a huge thank you to you.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it so much, buddy, for being part of this and for giving us that little kickoff there. Thank you so much. With that, I guess the first question we got is, what is a typical maintenance schedule for this? Mike, what do you say?
Well, that's a good point. So obviously, with any gasoline engine, your typical maintenance is service it, drain the oil and change out the oil every year. And another thing, we're obviously in the northern country, but drain that pump every fall season so that it doesn't freeze up and crack in the wintertime. Yeah. That's the biggest thing. I mean, literally all it is it's a gas engine with a water pump. It's very, very minimal maintenance.
Yep. Just follow on the Honda engine, just follow the manufacturer's recommendations, really, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yep.
Just follow it.
Yep.
Follow it to the letter and you'll be fine. Can it sit in the bed of a truck exposed to the elements for a long period of time? Yes, it can. Is it going to affect how it works? It probably will. Like anything, if you let it sit out in the rain and the snow and the wind and whatever, probably your engine's going to get a little sticky. If I was going to do that, I'd probably throw a tarp over it, you know?
But to that point, though, Doug, I'd like to just say that it is the polymer we use is UV stabilized. It's not going to hurt the tank and frame. It's just, I mean, obviously with any engine you want to protect it from the elements as much as possible.
We do make a pump engine cover that goes right over that. If you put a pump engine cover over top of that, then it could sit out there as long as it wasn't, you know, below freezing temperature.
Absolutely.
Should be no problem at all. Can you let the pump idle without pumping water? That's a good point. We did go over that a little bit, didn't we?
Yep.
On the foam units, no.
We don't recommend it.
We don't recommend it. They don't have the bypass back in. On the actual Fire Ranger units, yes, they have the bypass, so you can let that pump sit and run and agitate, and you won't have any problem at all. So the next question, Mike, I'll let you have that one.
Absolutely. So the question is my river's 15 feet down. Will it suck the water out of that? I assume what you mean on that question there is drafting the tank full with your draft hose. And the answer to that is yes, absolutely. It'll pull from 15 feet would be no problem at all. It'll draft uphill 15 feet. So yeah, you're always decreasing your flow obviously by pulling uphill, but it's not going to, I mean, a 15-foot reach isn't going to be enough to bother this pump much.
So here's a question we get asked a lot. Are the tanks available in any other colors to cater to the fire industry? Okay, that's an interesting question. Are they available? Yes, they are. I mean, we do make other color tanks. This is our standard color. This is what we have in our catalog. This is what we stock on the shelf. This is what we sell. Now, if you were in a situation or an industry where you wanted to sell a couple hundred of these a year and put in a pre-order and wanted a black tank, I don't think there'd be a problem with that.
Absolutely not. It would just be what we would call a custom unit.
Yep.
We would have to change the color polymer. With that, we usually tell our dealers if they're going to do custom, they got to order quantity size batches.
That's just what it would amount to. But the standard unit that you take off the shelf that we're going to sell you if you order 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 is going to be the green unit because that's what we have. It's what we sell. Hope that answers that question suitably. But if your thoughts are on doing bigger distribution, definitely get a hold of either me or Mike or one of the other salesmen in the staff, and we'll certainly accommodate you every way we can. Yeah. Can you have more than one hose spraying? Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. As we went over it a little bit when we were talking about this one, we've got multiple outlets out of the top of your pump. And like we said, we've seen guys running that hose reel and 3 or 4 other like garden size hoses coming off of there. And yes, it will manage that just fine. This, like I said, this pump is able to produce about 100 gallon per minute, and that's the max open flow, but that will absolutely run multiple hoses.
Does the tank drain well? That's a good question. We should have gone over that earlier, but that is a very good question. These tanks are 100% drainable. Every one of them comes down. You can't really see it here on the bottoms of them so well, but every one of them comes down to a full drain. And it's what they call a sump bottom, and it drains out the sump. So you're going to get 100% drain out on all of these tanks that we use in this. There won't be any water left.
Yep, and this hose that when we're showing the drafting, that coming from the bottom of the tank, it's got a valve in line. You can just uncouple that hose, turn your valve on, and that's going to drain right out of the sump of your tank. So that is complete full drain. Okay. Good question.
So,
next, sorry, Doug.
No, go ahead.
Next question we got here is, why would I use foam? We touched on that a little bit, Doug, but maybe just give your thoughts on...
So there's quite a few applications where I would use foam, actually. First of all, if you're doing anything with grease fires or oil of any kind, like Michael talked about earlier, when you spray water on an oil or grease fire, it actually spreads the fire. Mm-hmm. So you want foam. I mean, foam is a necessity in that situation, isn't it? I mean, you have to have it. Rubber fires, foam is better. Even out in the brush, though, we talked about already, too, you know, in the situations where that fire keeps flaring back up, it won't do that with foam.
Because it smothers, foam smothers it.
And it stays wet for a long time.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't just dry out and go back to burning. So yes, also if you're in an area that's short of water, where it's hard to get water out to, this is going to make your water last about 4 times as long by using foam. You cover about 4 times as much fire with the same amount of water by adding the foam to the mixture. So there's a few applications. There's a lot more. You talk to other people that use these in the industry, and they could probably give you hours worth of reasons why. But that's just the ones that come to mind as we stand here. So next question, Mike, does the foam and the water mix in the tank? Go ahead on that one.
No, we touched briefly on that before, but no, it does not. And there's reason for that. We've got the water tank is completely separate from the foam tank. So you've got in this little gray tank here, you've got just foam only, and that's a liquid foam, obviously, and just water in here, and there's nowhere for that to mix. The foam enters into the discharge line, so it's not going through the pump, it's just going out the discharge side of the pump. And there's no regulator coming from the pump back up into the water tank, because what happens then is you end up putting foam back into the water tank, and that starts to foam your big water tank, and that creates some serious issues. So no, the foam and water are separate.
That's a really good point, Mike. Just one more thing I'd like you to talk about, if you would, for just for a minute. I've heard you talk about it before, but that air induction system on the, I don't think we touched on that in the video. If you could talk about the air induction on the foam units, that would be really awesome to
That's a good point, Doug. Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. So on the foam rangers, we have an air induction nozzle on the end of the hose reels here. So you've got your valve here. You crack it open and adjust the amount of flow coming out. But around the base of this is little holes here, which is actually inducting air into the stream. And what that's doing is making your foam a lot more efficient by letting it billow out and foam up. Expand it, yeah, that's a good word.
Very much, yeah.
So this here is another key feature to the foam unit, because it doesn't look like much, but it does a lot for expanding that foam as it's coming out.
It'll make it go a lot further. So with that, Mike, that was very good. Appreciate you bringing that up at the end there. Looks like we don't have any more questions. I want to thank all of you for being on here today. It was a pleasure to go through this with you. Again, those of you that have been here, thank you for coming back. Those that are new, we look forward to seeing all of you again. Thank you all, guys. God bless. Take care and be safe.
Thank you. Bye for now.
Once again, I'd like to thank you very much for attending another EnduraPlas live virtual showroom. We'll see you next time.